Filioque is a Latin term added to the Niceno-Constantinopolitan Creed, which is not in the original version. It has been the subject of great controversy between Eastern and Western Christianity. The Latin term Filioque describes the double procession of the Holy Spirit and is translated into the English clause, "and the Son," in that creed, and in the Holy Spirit, the Lord, the giver of life, who proceeds from the Father and the Son, who with the Father and the Son is adored and glorified. Whether that term, Filioque, is included, and how it is translated and understood, can have important implications for how one understands the central Christian doctrine of the Holy Trinity. For some, the term implies a serious underestimation of the Father's role in the Trinity. For others, denial of what it expresses implies a serious underestimation of the role of the Son in the Trinity. Over time, the term became a symbol of conflict between Eastern Christianity and Western Christianity, although there have been attempts at resolving the conflict. Among the early attempts at harmonization of the works of Maximus the Confessor, who notably was sainted independently by both Eastern and Western churches, the Filioque is included in the form of the NCC used in most Western Christian churches, first appearing in the 6th century. It was accepted by the popes only in 1014, and is rejected by the Eastern Orthodox Church and Oriental Orthodox churches. It is not in the Greek text of this creed, attributed to the Second Ecumenical Council, Constantinople, which says that the Holy Spirit proceeds from the Father, without additions of any kind, such as, and the Son, or, alone. The Latin text now in use in the Western Church speaks of the Holy Spirit as proceeding from the Father and the Son. Differences over this doctrine and the question of papal primacy have been and remain primary causes of schism between the Eastern Orthodox and Western churches. The term has been an ongoing source of conflict between Eastern Christianity and Western Christianity, contributing, in part, to the East-West Schism of 1054 and proving to be an obstacle to attempts to reunify the two sides. Controversy. The controversy referring to the term Filioque involves 4 separate disagreements: about the term itself, about the orthodoxy of the doctrine of the double procession of the Holy Spirit to which the term refers, about the legitimacy of inserting the term into the NCC, about the authority of the Pope to define the orthodoxy of the doctrine or to insert the term into the NCC. Although the disagreement about the doctrine preceded the disagreement about the insertion into the creed, the two disagreements became linked to the third when the Pope approved insertion of the term into the NCC in the 11th century. C.S. Arinsky writes that, ultimately what was at stake was not only God's Trinitarian nature, but also the nature of the Church, its teaching authority and the distribution of power among its leaders. Hubert Cunliffe Jones identifies 2 opposing Eastern Orthodox opinions about the Filioque: a liberal view and a rigorist view. The liberal view sees the controversy as being largely a matter of mutual miscommunication and misunderstanding. In this view, both East and West are at fault for failing to allow for a plurality of theologies. Each side went astray in considering their theological framework as the only one that was doctrinally valid and applicable. Thus, neither side would accept that the dispute was not so much about conflicting dogmas as it was about different theologomena or theological perspectives. While all Christians must be in agreement on questions of dogma, there is room for diversity in theological approaches. However, this liberal view is vehemently opposed by those Eastern Orthodox whom Cunliffe Jones identifies as holding a rigorist view. According to standard Eastern Orthodox position, as pronounced by Photius, Mark of Ephesus, and 20th-century Orthodox theologians such as Vladimir Lossky, the Filioque question hinges on fundamental issues of dogma and cannot be dismissed as simply one of different theologomena. Many in the rigorist camp consider the Filioque to have resulted in the role of the Holy Spirit being underestimated by the Western Church and thus leading to serious doctrinal error. In a similar vein, C.S. Arinsky comments that, although it was common in the 20th century to view the Filioque as just another weapon in the power struggle between Rome and Constantinople, although this was occasionally the case, for many involved in the dispute the theological issues outweighed by far the ecclesiological concerns. According to C.S. Arinsky, the deeper question was perhaps whether Eastern and Western Christianity had wound up developing differing and ultimately incompatible teachings about the nature of God. Moreover, C.S. Arinsky asserts that the question of whether the teachings of East and West were truly incompatible became almost secondary to the fact that, starting around the 8th or 9th century, Christians on both sides of the dispute began to believe that the differences were irreconcilable. From the view of the West, the Eastern rejection of the Filioque denied the consubstantiality of the Father and the Son and was thus a form of crypto-Arianism. In the East, the interpolation of the Filioque seemed to many to be an indication that the West was teaching a substantially different faith.